Welcome! This is my second interview with Mikotan, the head organizer of TouhouFest, which is happening in Torrance, California from April 29th to April 30th. Can you please briefly introduce yourself?
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I go by Mikotan, and yeah, it's definitely nice to hear from you. Again, after over a year, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's been almost a year since our last interview, so the amount of things to do at TouhouFest have expanded considerably since last year. What would your general pitch of TouhouFest be to prospective congoers?
So my prospective pitch is that we're one. The event takes place at the end of this month, and for those of you who are in the area or still on the fence, this is definitely a great opportunity for Touhou fans to meet other Touhou fans and network. We've got a pretty big lineup of guests. Like we've most recently announced Tam of TaMusic, which is like a huge surprise even for us. Or as the saying goes, a surprise, uh, but a welcome one. And yeah, we do have a pretty packed lineup for content. We've got panels. Heck, I know that you applied for a panel, and I know you're doing a panel, for example.
Yes.
Um, yeah, we've got plenty of tournaments. We've got like at least I think I want to say 7 to 8 gatherings for cosplay. Like lots of performances, and I think putting all that aside, I think most people here who are coming is just wants to be able to meet up with friends and contacts that they've only really talked to online. So this is the first time after several years probably of being able to meet in person. So we do hope to see everyone there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I was actually talking to Mikotan a bit before the interview, but I'm going to be meeting a bunch of friends I've made through Discord through TouhouFest for the first time, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so from organizing TouhouFest, you've amassed a large amount of staff. What's the process like for choosing staff, and how do you choose who works on what?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So over the past year, so finding the core staff was a bit of a challenge because um, we basically had to go to people whom we knew, like in our circles, who not only knew about Toho and wanted to see another Toho event in the states, and but just because you're passionate about Toho, that does not necessarily mean that you're going to be good at a specific task. So then the next question then becomes, so what are people's skills? Right? What are they interested in? So, and when picking the core staff, like the director of operations, director of programming, the gaming hall manager, staff ops, that one we wanted to pick from contacts from whom we know, and for the other positions and line staff, it's through an application process, which is still technically open. And hey, if you're still interested in staffing or even volunteering, it's open on the website. And it goes through a review process. We have a staff ops person who screens everyone, does interviews, and then whatever their skills are or whatever their interests are, we would then put them into the respective department. So, and we've built up a pretty good team of pretty what's the best word um, pretty passionate and experts in their field. Since I know mentioned before the interview, you're interested in the gaming tournaments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Joey, who is the head of the gaming hall, I've known him for several years. I want to say since 2014, I think 2014 or 2015, and he and his friends I knew were pretty big in the Smash tournament scene here in Los Angeles. And he's staffed for and volunteered at many other gaming related events. He has not only is a good player, he also has organized brackets and understands how tournaments, how all that works. And I'll be honest. So my main skill set is in administration and finance. So I don't really know the first thing about running a gaming hall or running tournaments. So that's where his skill set comes in. So we basically said, okay, well, here's the space, here's how much budget he gets, what does he want to do with it, and here's his team, and I just basically give him free reign. Let him do his thing. So that is part of the process, is that we want to, put people, but we also want to match their skills accordingly.
Yeah, it sounds very sound. It was kind of surreal waking up one day and then just finding out one of my friends ended up becoming one of the staff members. But it was cool. So amongst the things announced for TouhouFest this past year, one of the things was a very wide variety of guests. So what's the process like for deciding which guests come to TouhouFest?
So that's a really fun little process. So as for the listeners and the viewers out there, so we've been planning this event for the better part of 2 years. We started planning, I want to say, March of 2021, essentially. And we wanted to take care of like the back end first, like the emails, social media accounts, all that. We want to have all that infrastructure set up. And obviously, as you're well aware, since Touhou is a very community-driven series or franchise, you want to call this, one of the things we did was we wanted to do a lot of community outreach. And we did a survey, just a Google form survey. Hey, where's everyone from? We're planning on doing, this Touhou event. What guests do you want to see at this event? So, and we said, other than Zun-san, pick at least 5 or pick no more than 5 guests and put down what category, they will be classified as. Okay. And we got a pretty large response. We got, I want to say, around 120 responses, which is pretty good. So about 100, so 120, and an average around 3 to 4. So roughly around 300 replies. Of course, there's going to be a lot of overlap. But we noticed that we basically wanted to pick, okay, which people, what names came up the most, who seemed the most popular. So, and obviously, because it's our first year, we pretty much have planned to stick to North American guests simply because, of cost reasons. So we looked around. We started reaching out to people, and we tried to pick guests that covered pretty much different aspects of the Touhou community. For example, let's be honest, Touhou. There's a lot of people within the Touhou community are gamers. You yourself are a gamer, right?
Yes.
So who's a big person within the Touhou community? And Joey recommended Hesiro. He's big within the Hizo Tensoku community. He's been around for several years. Okay, sure. We reach out to them. Hey, would you be interested in doing commentating? At this event. He said, sure. Another name that came up quite often was Wonderful. Obviously, cosplay, as you probably are aware, is a huge aspect of the community. So, and Wonderful is incredibly well known because she does so many Touhou cosplays. So she was a natural choice. We reached out to her. She said yes. Gensokyo Radio was also a name that came up pretty often. Again, they've been around. They've been on the scene for almost. I want to say a decade, almost.
I think it's straight up been like 13 years actually.
Yeah. Okay. I think
like, Lunar's been working for a long time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think they recently passed their 12. Yeah, so they're coming up on 13 years. Yeah, so you're right. But yeah, they've been a huge part of the community. So why not bring them on? And we obviously, obviously this wouldn't be a Touhou event without bringing in the music guests. I mean, music is such a huge part of the community. So who's big in the on the TaMusic scene in North America. Lyrica Live. Her name came up several times. We reached out to her, or I should say them really. Yeah, they said yeah, sure, we'd love to come out. We reached out to Odyssey. Odyssey was a really big name, very popular. Reached out to them. They said sure, why not? She seemed very excited. And I actually don't mind mentioning this one. So, Tam was really interesting, and why we mentioned it's a bit of a surprise. Crazily enough, he reached out to us.
Oh, wild.
That's why I said, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. He actually reached. So, I was aware. We were aware that he and his staff. They knew about the events. But we thought and Tam was a name that came up several times. But we thought, we would love to get him, but with our first year, is that even possible? And the crazy part is, he reached out to us. I'm like, oh, we had to do a double take. Is that really him? Sure. Let me talk to the team and let us juggle a few things. Yeah. I mean, sure. Yeah, we can definitely make this work. Cause hey, let's be honest, that's not an opportunity that comes by every day. So why not? So it's anyway. So, but to answer your question, the process of getting the guests is a combination of what the community wants and how they submit, who they want to see at the event, and basically then it goes to our team to figure out, okay, reaching out to them and to figuring out, okay, can we actually logistically bring them here to the event? And that's what it comes down to.
Okay, yeah. The thing about Tam actually segues really nicely into my next question, which is whether there's a guest that has to cancel last minute or a guest that wants to join on super late, there's always going to be some last minute changes that happen. And the closer it gets to the event, the harder those things are to manage. So how do you and your team manage these last minute changes?
So the good news is that we do not have any of those changes for the time being. As far as we're aware of, every guest, all the performers who said they are going to come are going to come. If let's say there is an emergency, they will notify us, and we will immediately notify all the attendees.
Okay, got it. So transparency.
We pretty much we do discuss how would be the best way to what would be the best way to do that? So actually, so scratch that. There is a group who did which did end up canceling, and that was the Touhou Roadshow. So my bad. Now, but they canceled much earlier, and as it turns out, I think one of the co-owners was like really sick, and I guess wasn't in the best situation at that point. So it just wasn't feasible for the Toho Roadshow to come in, and we discussed it with them. Figured out okay, what was going to happen, and then we had then talked it up with our team, Joey's team, because he's the gaming hall manager. To figure out okay, so because we're not going to be able to get their setup, how do we fill that in essentially? So we had to figure out what are our options and such. So, but that's something that, yeah, something that we've had to kind of run on the fly. And we had to try and manage it the best we can. But it goes, if anything happens like that, we immediately notify the team, and we have to call, like, let's say, like emergency meetings and try and scramble. Okay, we need to move this around here. We need to, like, start shifting things around on the schedule. So, but as of right now, I can't see any major foreseeable issues right now.
Got it. So the process for the gaming tournament specifically, if I remember right, it was what replaced Roadshow was like Joey's own side venture. So what was the process of figuring that out like?
Yeah, so it was so I forget exactly how that was supposed to go. What was discussed? So originally, the plan was to have around 50-50. Like we had our own setup, and then we had the Toho Roadshow setup. And once the Roadshow canceled, Joey stepped in, and like I said, I mentioned before earlier that Joey has been a part of the gaming scene for a really long time. So, one of the little side projects that he's been working on is Yokaiverse. Basically, is to have like his own gaming setup, all the different machines, and I think his eventual plan is to say, hey, if he wants to go to X event, or X event wants a gaming setup, hey, he's got all the equipment that that the event can just rent out from him. So I think that was essentially the plan B. He mentioned that to me, that it was in the work. So it just kind of he basically had to quickly scramble everything and, like, okay, start ordering more equipment. It was a backup plan. I heard a while back, but yeah, that was something that we did have a contingency for.
Yeah, that's very nice to know that you have things in place in case things don't go to plan. Because again, things don't always go that way. So also kind of on the planning side, so from certain past experiences, Touhou fans are well aware of the importance of managing a budget for events like these. So how exactly are the funds for TouhouFest acquired?
That's a big question, huh? That's the thing. So, the funds were acquired through a combination of sources. So, as part of the AMP organization, the AMP organization funded the initial portion, or at least set up like the initial starting funds. I myself actually put down my own personal money for this, and a few other staff members also put down some funds, or I should say, the initial funds, and the rest of the funding comes from various sponsors, donors, and the community. Like, it's funded through all the badge sales, all the artist alley table. We plan on doing merch, and we plan and the vendors alley. So all those funds, all go into the. That's how we acquire all the funds. We help, get the starting funds, to get the venue and everything, and everything else is funded by the fans and the community.
Yeah, it's nice to know that, yeah, Touhou is such a fan-driven community, so it's cool that you've gotten help from the community. It's also very admirable that you would put down your own funds to try to run an event like this.
Well, I mean, so on a more personal note, I've been in the Touhou community for upwards of a decade, and I've been pushing for a Touhou event for a long time. So some of you out there, your listeners might be aware, some might not be, but yeah, I do have a personal stake in this. So don't get me wrong, and I really want to see this succeed. So um, ever since I ever since AWA 2013, I wasn't physically there though. But ever since I saw Zun-san interacting with the U.S. and the fans here, I thought, wouldn't it be super cool to see Zun-san at a U.S. Touhou event? I've never given up that dream. And don't forget, ALA, or AWA was in 2013. That was 10 years ago. I haven't given up that dream for a long time.
I hope that dream can become a success. So yeah. So here's another one that I'm actually privy to from a friend. So recently, there was a draft of an email that was sent out prematurely to vendors and artists. Much like how things don't always go to plan, mistakes are also impossible to avoid. So how do you and your team manage mistakes?
So what we would do is we would then realize, oh shoot, yeah, the email was supposed to actually. So the email was supposed to go out. It was just that we just forgot to delete like a certain portion, and we would send up a follow email basically stating, oh shoot, we accidentally made this mistake. Either like please disregard or like we want to clarify what it was actually going on. So making mistakes is one thing. As you said, we all do. We're by no means perfect, but acknowledging your own mistakes, correcting them, and moving on is definitely really, really important, and that's something that we strive to do. When we first started, this project, this whole endeavor, we've made some mistakes too. Like we acknowledge that. I acknowledge that. So, but the important thing is we wanted to make sure that, hey, whoops, we screwed up. Please don't take this the wrong way. And we clarify what was actually supposed to go on. That's it. So that's really what all it comes down to. So
There is a TouhouFest Discord server, and it's ended up becoming quite big, and at this point, it's actually sort of gone beyond TouhouFest to the point where a lot of people actually have it as their main gathering point for the Touhou community. Like, this is where they mainly interact with other Touhou fans. So what are some challenges in running such a large server, and what was your general reaction to how the server developed?
that's an interesting question. So in all honesty, we actually were debating whether or not we would or we should have a Discord server for the events. Because one, we didn't want to split our attention. Number one, or at least split our attention too much. Number two is, well, as you probably are aware, you're also in quite a few servers as well. The bigger a server gets, the more mods and
Yes.
the more stuff that you're going to need. Let's face it, and such, right? So you almost have to build two different, almost like two different teams, almost one for the Discord and one for the main events. And like I said, we did expect the server to grow. As the event gets out there and more people start joining in. We suspected it was going to be kind of like a gathering place. That's perfectly fine. Hey, people, they're doing like their own game nights. People are streaming. People are streaming art. People are talking about cosplay. I mean, I think that's really amazing. Again, because again, we acknowledge that not everyone can physically make it to the event. That's fine. We understand that. But there's no the TouhouFest server is open to the general public. We don't require you to buy a badge to come to to join the server, and we want to build community. As you said, that also presents its own challenges. So as the server starts to expand, we would then talk to the mod team to say, hey, do we want to have like, let's say, a dedicated gaming channel? We notice like that sometimes like the chats, they can get 15, 20 people, which is like, wow, we didn't expect that. So, and we would just keep adding on like little bits here and there. But if we're talking about, let's say, like doing like special emotes and like all the stuff like that, then the answer is that's trickier because again, when as I mentioned before, the funding comes primarily from the community, from sales and like I said, Artist Alley, merch sales, vendor hall, all that goes. But all that resources, all the funding primarily goes back into the event itself. Getting whatever, all the supplies, all the badges, making sure, hey, making sure we pay the guests and such. The main drawback is there's not a lot of funds left to kind of build the server. We would love to get emotes for the server, our own dedicated like that, but again, that's more resource for us. So it is how it is. But so far, the Discord server at least has been growing steadily. It hasn't like a huge increase so quickly. And so far, I think the mod team and the staff team has been pretty good at managing it, resolving any kind of disputes and such. It is a little bit tricky because the Discord rules are a little bit different than like obviously the event rules. So people have to understand that the same rules doesn't always apply to both scenarios. So, but other than that, yeah, I hope that also answers your question as well.
Yeah, it gives a good overview. It's honestly kind of hard to imagine this event happening without that Discord server, because it feels like so crucial at this point.
Yeah, it is. And again, like, when we plan, when we plan for something like, again, a physical event, we do have to try to, and this is how, going back to one of your earlier questions, how do we manage that? Well, so you can make like your best educated guesses. Like you can anticipate, well, if we build this event, we do this event or this concert or this thing, what actually needs to go into it, right? What are some of the potential challenges or pitfalls if we do such, if we take X option. Same thing with, again, the Discord server. Okay, it'd be really cool to have a Discord server. Setting it up, it's not an issue for us. The problem then becomes, okay, as it keeps on growing, how do we resolve disputes? How is it going to be like, how strict do we want to be? Are we going to have some kind of verification system? Do we want to have, like, let's say, a meme channel? For the longest time, we didn't have a meme channel because we didn't want, we were like wondering, like, well, is it going to, all the chat's going to be devolving into memes, but of course, there's a good chunk of Touhou is about memes, so it's kind of like doing like guess and check work, right? So, but no, I'm seriously very impressed that, and I didn't even suspect, and I didn't even think, none of us would have thought that the server would have gotten as big as it did. It's like, oh, okay. So, and and again, we try and do our best to, obviously be part of the community. As you know, we have I think around 9 or 10 affiliate servers. Some that are the guest servers, and some that are like groups that have been very supportive of us. So we want to be able to, the biggest thing about both the physical event and the Discord server is we want to work with the community, not against it. That's probably the main guiding principle behind all that.
Yeah, that is a very good principle to follow. So all of those were what I'd call more like internal questions about how the event operates. So now I want to take a look at some more of the direct parts, like the external factors.
Mm-hmm.
So last time I asked about the possibility of Touhou 9 at TouhouFest. Now, not only is there a tournament, but it also has the most members signed up. More than Rivals of Aether, and even more than Soku. So I was curious, was this what you and your staff expected, and how did you all react?
To be honest, we're a little bit surprised, actually. Simply because, so Touhou 9, yes, it's been out the longest, right? So, but Rivals of Aether is super popular. And I know so is like 14.5 and Soku. Because again, there's huge communities for that. So, at least me personally, like I actually don't play. So, and sorry, no offense to you and to anyone who does play, I don't really play that much Touhou 9. I play more Rivals of Aether, and I play a lot more 14.5. But that's just me. Again, that's just me personally. So, like, the best. So to me is it's one thing to be surprised. That's fine. But again, as the organizers, at the end of the day, the best thing that we can do is to be neutral about it. It's like, okay, well, this happens. Well, we'll okay, we'll adjust accordingly and we'll run with it. Okay. Especially with me as the head organizer, as the chair of the event, I do have to remain neutral. Unless there's something, really crazy that requires my immediate attention, it's like we don't come down, to say, oh, we don't allow, X theme. It's like, okay, so it's like, okay, we want to have, to do, no, is it possible to have, like, let's say, I know a couple of the members were pushing for this. Is it possible to have, like, let's say, a Fumo booth where you have a booth where it's just displaying Fumos? And again, it's a cool idea, but and again, this is where it comes to some of the logistical challenges. Because the booth is technically open, and because they're not selling anything, it's just for display. There's and from what I understand, those things are pretty valuable. So, is there going to be staff to be able to guard it, for example, to keep watch? So we kind of had to nix that idea in favor of a Fumo meetup instead. For it. So again, this is just the logistical challenges. It's like, oh, this is a thing. Okay, well, figuring out how this might work. Well, the first option is probably not the best. Well, what about option B at that point? Yeah, I think that works. So like that. Hope that answers that question.
Touhou 9 to Fumos.
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, going back.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, though. Just keeping logistics in track. So
Yeah, but no, keeping it. But right, sorry, going back to the Touhou 9. We basically knowing that that's the thing. So Joey and his team has to basically prep. Okay, we need more. We need more. They need more setups for Touhou 9, and they need to assign people to that bracket more than, like, let's say, Rivals Debater or Hiso Tensoku, for example. So that just him and his team trying to adjust. That's it. So yeah, you can definitely talk to him or message him if you want more details on that one.
okay. And this also applies to anyone who's in the Touhou Discord who's listening. I'm sure Joey would be happy to answer some questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have these Touhou games with tournaments, but there's also going to be a gaming hall at TouhouFest on display, including some of the PC98 games. So the mainline games are mentioned as playable titles, but there's also fan games mentioned. So I know Joey's more in charge of this area, but do you know about any of the fan games we might see at the gaming hall?
I'm trying to think. Ooh. From what I understand, I think there are going to be a few. I don't know, obviously, the exact setup, but there are going to be. I think. I want to say he's going to have a few there, but they will probably be more for, like, open play or free play. As to the exact which ones, I'm not sure of all. I'm not sure of all. I'm not sure the exact titles though that he has. So that definitely is more of a Joey question and for his team than for me, actually, at this point.
Got it. This next one is also half question, half request. So, yeah, I mentioned the PC98 games on the website. They're listed as being playable. So while you have a game like Touhou 9 with a netcode patch, Touhou 3, the multiplayer PC98 game, does not. I'm probably one of the only people in this country who's actually played Touhou 3 locally, and it's a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't much of a chance to play Touhou 3 specifically with multiplayer, because again, there's no netcode patch. So, do you know if Touhou 3 is going to be on display with the option of multiplayer?
I'm trying to think. Again, I'm not sure. I do think I thought I saw someone in the server. I think they're bringing it themselves. Like, we do have an area where it's like you're bringing your own machine, I think. So we're not stopping people from doing that. As if it's so I think the one that person is bringing is for can be, I think, multiplayer, I think. But I don't know if the ones that Joey has is the same setup. If that answers your question.
Yeah. So, from what I'm hearing, yeah, might happen. Good to know.
Pretty much, it's just right, because again, you have to understand, like, there's stuff that is within our purview. That's fine. Like, we are bringing in, like, for example, the arcade machines, arcade cabinets. I think we have around, I want to say it's around 10 or 12 arcade machines and cabinets. But if someone is bringing, like, their own stuff, like, for example, if they're bringing, like, the Damaku game or their own machines, then that's technically speaking outside of our purview. If that makes any sense.
Yes. Okay, slight anecdote here, but yeah, so the Touhou Game Dev Hub has their own little setup in the gaming hall. I have a friend who made a Touhou fan game that runs on a Sega Genesis. He is bringing that for our setup. So for people going to the con, there's going to be all types of devices. Should be interesting.
Including a Sega Genesis. Wow, that is really old school.
Yeah, he's made, I think, like 5 games for the Genesis for game jams. Any listeners, if you want to go check out T-Body on itch.io, you can see the Sega Genesis Touhou fan games.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just seeing that, it's like, wow, I'm again just again seeing on the Discord, like when the artists, when you guys post like, hey, I'm bringing this setup, or this artist like, hey, I'm bringing this thing. I'm just blown away by all this stuff. It's like, just wow, just the stuff like, and I do look at the whole game dev server every so often. It's insane what you guys pull off.
Yeah, thank you. It's a fun place to be. So recently, TouhouFest made an announcement that all AI art would be banned from being sold, and this decision was very positively received. Like, I think it is one of your most liked tweets.
Mm-hmm.
How did you and your team come to the conclusion to disallow AI art from being sold?
So the we discussed it with the team early. Well, it wasn't like early on. It was like, I want to say it's around 6 months ago. And one person, and so what we do is we have like monthly, staff meetings. Okay. Um, and when we have those meetings, we would discuss, any changes in policy, any, or if we need to add new policy. Um, we would then be very open, like, where are like, our sales at, where new staff is, any changes to staffing, any changes to, big changes to like the website, but basically any major changes that all goes through, like the committee and the staff meetings. And one of our staff had brought this up. What about AI art? Because it's a bit of a novel thing, and some conventions, you know, have put out policies for that, and it was a topic which I think was important to the community, and I said, okay, let's put it on the agenda, and we discussed what would be the policy, and pretty much the entire staff was vehemently against it because like, we knew the reaction was going to be big. We just didn't know how big. Again, I'm just blown away. It's like, oh wow, that got big really fast. So because it is a bit of a contentious thing, because again, the Touhou community is very much driven by artists, musicians, you guys, fan game, people, and then just the community again. And the best way to support, if the community is helping to support us, we also want to help support the community. And again, as the person who is also, also handles finances and such, when people say, well, how do I support, this artist or this performer or this talent? A really simple way, to do that is, to buy their stuff. Sorry to say, money talks. It's not me trying to sound like a jerk, but it is what it is. And we do have we have two official artists on board. We have Cloudy, Cookie Tanuki Art, and Freezex. So, and like I said, they do get first dibs on, like, okay, what kind of artwork and such they get to do for the event and such. So, and with obviously a lot of the artists, coming in and such, and again, it's for most people, they do it as a hobby, and there's a good chunk of people who do it as as like as their full-time gig. So the question really is that we had to ask is, well, if TouhouFest was supporting AI art, that kind of seems very disingenuous to, not just Touhou artists, but the entire, anime artist, community in general. seems like, right?
Yes.
So if you think about it from that kind of perspective, and because it's like there's, and that's a whole, and you probably can imagine, for like that, it's a huge can of worms. So anything that there's a giant question mark behind that, we figured, the best thing to do is to simply disallow it. And as we stated in the policy, we do not allow that to be displayed or sold within the premises. That's it. If you want to enjoy it on their own, that's fine. We're not stopping them for that. We actually can't. But within our purview, and like I said, to show our support for the artists as a whole, not just Touhou artists, but just, the artist community as a whole, we decided the best thing to do is to disallow, AI art. That's it. So it was under very careful it was under a lot of consideration, and we wanted to be as clear and be worded as best as possible. So I think that should answer the question.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sure this answer will also make even more people happy.
Yeah.
So, someone in my audience asked about R18 rated content. So the guidelines actually cover this pretty extensively, so yes, it's allowed, but it should be covered. But something else they were wondering about is if there would be any markers for vendors that sell R18 content, so that some awkward conversations might be avoided. So just a little badge that says they sell R18 content, for example.
That is a good question, and like a marker that says, well, that would be up to the individual artists or the vendors themselves.
Okay.
So I did actually see that question, that is a fair question. But like I said, it is, the question is in our FAQs, is that so and from what I remember seeing the comments, and the question is that would there be like an after hours, like an after dark, vendor hall? And the answer is no. We just don't have that kind of capability. But again, our policy is that R18 material, yes, can be sold, but again, it must be covered. It must be clearly it must be a label that is R18, and anyone intending to purchase must show ID with birth date. And we do include that because sorry to say, it shuts down, let's say someone trying to pull out a student ID, which a student ID is fine when you're picking up when you're picking up your badge, but sorry to say that won't cut it when you're trying to buy something that's R18. Sorry, that doesn't cut it.
Yeah, just imagining a high schooler showing up.
So again, this is why wording is really important. We understand that. So
yes. Again, I think you did a really good job covering that in the Q&A. Because, yeah, while I was researching this question, I cut it down because, a lot of this is already answered.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, good job with that.
Thank you.
So with the artists and vendors, so can you give an idea of the different types of artists and vendors that people might see at TouhouFest?
Yeah, so we have around 20 artists and around 12 vendors. So about 40, basically 40 sellers roughly. From what I can tell, it's going to be a pretty wide variety of stuff. I know that a lot of people will have stickers. I think Cloudy, she's doing I think keychains, I want to say. There's going to be your character art, your art prints. I believe there's a person called Lemony against Tokyo. That person is doing what was it, the pixel art. Looks really interesting. That looks really unique. So you've got that. I know, of course, you guys have a table, so it's going to be a very wide combination of stuff. Like we've got, like, obviously, like the fan game tables. Um, I know that the cosplay ambassadors will have their own booth. So for people wanting to help support them, they've got like cosplay prints. Wonderful will have her own booth as well, so she's doing like her prizes and such, and her prints. The guests will also have their booths, so they'll have probably some music, some of their merch, like that. Again, I don't know all the details of what they're bringing and such, but I have seen like, again, like a crazy variety of total related goods. And I'll be honest, as someone who does frequent, the conventions a lot, it's pretty difficult to find Touhou merch nowadays, unless you look really, really hard. So, again, if you want to find Touhou merch, here's your opportunity to do so.
Yes. I think I went to, I think I went to, like, a book off. Searching the entire place for Touhou merch. I found one single CD across, like, 20 different shelves or something. So it would be very nice to have a lot of these in one place.
Yeah, and that's again, that's what we're aiming for. So
Panels are a major part of TouhouFest, as well as the live musical performances. But of course, some people cannot attend TouhouFest, whether for financial or geographic reasons. A really big thing people are wondering is, will some of these parts of TouhouFest be recorded?
So from my understanding is I think some parts of it will be either streamed or recorded. I know Joey has been talking about streaming some of the tournaments. Um, Again, versus it being recorded, it would have to be up to the various talents and the guests if they wish it to be recorded, or if they're recording it themselves. As to other parts of it, it's really difficult to say because, again, like, we would not only need to get everyone's permission. For example, if, like, let's say, I know that you're doing a panel, for example.
Yes.
For example, if we wanted to record that, either one of the people that one of your team can do that, or you'd have to basically give us permission to do so. And for example, what if you said no? Right? Then we can't record it. For example, that's a straight up example right there. So it's difficult for us to really say how much of the event or how much of the panels or the concerts will be recorded and live streamed. It's really difficult. I mean, we know parts of it will be. We just don't know what parts. We just don't know what parts exactly at this point still.
Okay, so, yeah. So this is something I was wondering while setting up my panel, actually, but... Because me and Delta Pi would be totally fine with our panel being recorded, but would that be something you would be able to do? Like, do you have the supplies for that?
We have to see because, again, it's not just having the equipment, but do we have the staff?
Got it. Okay.
And that's difficult because, again, our staff is already stretched pretty thinly. Because again, the first year we just want to make sure we're just keeping the event running. When it comes to all the extra stuff, like, oh, hey, do you want to record this or do all this stuff like that? It's, again, very difficult because, again, if we don't, even if we have the equipment, if we don't have the staff, that's just simply not going to happen at that point. So it's incredibly difficult for that. So.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I think me and a lot of other panel creators were actually wondering about that. Okay, so on the topic of performances, you have a lot of really popular faces from the Touhou community performing.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just give a brief description of like each performer and their music?
Sure. So, starting on, let's say, that was off the top of my head. So, starting on Saturday, we have, I believe, after the opening ceremonies, we're going to have a couple of DJ performances. So, DJ Kubi, I believe, is going to be. He's going to have two sets on Saturday. He's already announced it like that, so that's already public info. I've got no issue mentioning that as well. And you might be wondering, well, wait a second, why does Kubi have two sets on Saturday? Well, the answer is simple. It's his actual birthday that day.
Mm.
So why not, why not DJ on why not allow him to DJ on his birthday, right? Yeah. So I believe he's been DJing for a few years right now, so he does like a lot of he does more. Of course, he does Touhou songs, but I think he does more. I want to say he does more video game songs than anime songs. I could be wrong on that one. I know after QB we have Fados Acacia. She is a flute performer based here in SoCal, and she plays a lot of songs from like anime and video games, and then just like general like meme culture and such. So, and she's got a huge repertoire, and she's been playing the flute, I think, for geez, I want to say close like 8, or it's either 8, like yeah, at least 8 years. I want to say. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm not looking at any notes right now. So, and I believe after that we have Made Academy Cafe. They are a again SoCal based uh, meat cafe, and they are that's the way how the way how make sure I phrase this correctly. So they are the only group in SoCal, the only made group in SoCal which does not discriminate. Which does not discriminate. So
Oh.
that's just the way how they. Hey, I'm just saying. I'm just repeating. This is the way how they say it. Okay, and I'm trying to remember the exact wording. And essentially, what they do is they perform a lot of various different songs and dances around around various different conventions. So like they perform songs from like again from like anime. They've performed like idol songs, but they've also performed like I want to say like from like a couple of movies and TV shows too. So yeah, they've done a lot of different things. So you got that performance. After that performance, I think we got another DJ set. Then I believe we have the Fumo Gathering. After that, I believe is the cosplay contest. I believe it's from 7 to 8 o'clock. And then after that, of course, is the we actually just announced, today, is the Odyssey concert or performance. She goes from 8 to 9:30 on Saturday evening. So that's definitely pretty cool. As I always like to do is the hashtag Your Beat Intensifies. Yep. And I believe on Sunday we have Lyrica. So hers going to be interesting. Like I think it's kind of like a cat. Like it's a combination of like kind of like a Q&A, meet and greet,
Oh.
casual like a concert and a karaoke. So a little bit different vibe. Um, after them is the Tam performance. So that's going to be crazy. And after that, I believe is the one of our staff members, Meadow Kitty, is going to be doing a dance performance. And so, for those of you who don't know, Meadow Kitty, or Lauren as she's also known, she is quite well known for doing Touhou cosplays and such, but she also does dance and idol performances. She also has her own idol duo. So she is going to be doing like that. Tam, I mean, do I really need to intro to Tamas? He's, one of the biggest, Touhou Dojin musicians out there. Probably best known for playing like violin. And for those of you who haven't known, if you know the song Night of Nights, which goes really, really fast, yeah, he can perform that on violin. That's insane. So, and for those of you who don't know Lyrica, so Lyrica Live is actually it. So they are a duo, and what they do is that they I'm trying to think. They basically take the original songs, and Asa, of Lyrical Live, she starts writing the lyrics for various different characters. Like I know she's did one for like, let's say, Clown Piece, for the Prison River Sisters, of course, for Byakuren, for Seija, and more recently like that, I think Asa and Laura, their partner, they've done like duos, they've done like different themes and such, but they would do the songs in English. So one of the few English Toho song performers out there. So I think that, obviously, if you want more information like that, you can find all of their information on the TouhouFest website. We've got all their bios, all their websites, all linked up.
Yes, that is a very stacked lineup.
Yeah, like you just see how many music guests we have. We almost forgot. So not really a performance per se, but we do have a. We also have, I believe, on Sunday is the Gensokyo Radio meet and greet / live. Because so Gensokyo Radio, as you probably are aware, I believe every month or so they do like a Gensokyo Radio Live, which they might actually do on that Sunday. I'm not sure. So it'd be a Gensokyo Radio Live.
Live. Yeah.
Yeah, just like Lyrica Live.
Live.
I didn't say that right. It's like, yeah, I guess that's how guess that's how you call that. Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Sounds amazing. So, this question seems to come up a lot on Discord, but I just want to ask it here too so more people will hear. As of right now, how many people are anticipated to come to TouhouFest?
That question's been asked like so many times. The best answer I can really give is we're expecting anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people. That's really the best answer. That's really the best answer I can give.
And I thought 500 was the upper bound. That's crazy.
Well, again, it's really difficult to say because, like, on one hand, because you got so many different factors, right? Because on one hand, this is a first year event, so like, yeah, they say, well, I might not be able to make it to this one, but I'm going to try and make it to the next one. So that's one factor. Another factor is that, well, again, as you said, I understand that distance and cost is a huge factor for a lot of people. So we're not sure. Or like, let's say, because I know I've heard this is around like their midterms or finals week, so that's going to be difficult. But at the same time, there's been we've done a lot of promotion, a lot of marketing, and quite a lot of people know about this event, and maybe they're just waiting to get time off, or waiting to hear maybe waiting to all the pieces fall into place, and we like the community is is a pretty decent size. So, and barring any kind of like crazy happenings, is that the honest answer is we just simply don't know. But what I can say is even all the okay. So why do we say 500 to 1,000? Well, because and this is just something which again you can plan for. You plan for different contingencies and scenarios. So way back when we started planning, we figured, okay, because we had about a year and a half to plan and to promote this, what would be a reasonable target that the team could reach? And again, we basically had a range between 500 to 1,000. 1,000 is incredibly insane. Do I think we're going to really hit that? Probably not. Because again, Touhou is still a niche thing. So we're not, and again, let's put Touhou aside for a second. All conventions, all events have to start somewhere. Okay? Even like Anime Expo, when they started, I think, over 20 years ago, it started, I think, in like one hotel room with like barely 20, 30 vendors, and I think with barely 300 attendees. We all had to start somewhere. So when people keep asking, how many people is expected to attend, the answer is that we don't know. That's why we prefer to give a range instead, which is, if you want to split the difference, go ahead. But what I have seen before in the past, with just events in general, is that there's typically a large uptick of sales in the last week. Heck, when I even I fall into this too. Like, when I was planning on going to Otakon, I didn't buy my badge until like I want to say about a week or 2 weeks before the event. So like since I'm of course based here in LA, I don't know if you were at Anime Los Angeles or not. So I was tabling there, so I don't have to worry about getting a badge. Anime Impulse was the week afterwards, and I thought, well, because it was raining so heavily there, and like I'm still feeling a bit tired, do I want to go or not? So, and I thought, well, I know some people, I want to know some performances I want to see on Sunday, so I thought, yeah, sure, why not? I'll just go run it, and I just bought my badge, the Friday before the event. So even I fall into that. So again, you can see why there's all these different factors that it's incredibly hard to account for.
Sounds very challenging, but I'm happy to know it sounds like there's going to be a pretty decent amount of people there, no matter the case. So yeah, looking forward to it. But related to people, this is more just a personal question. So like, I'm driving to TouhouFest since I live in California, but something that always stresses me out is how parking is.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the parking situation of TouhouFest is going to be like for people like not walking from the hotel?
Well, one of the reasons we selected the venue that we did is parking is free. And if you look at the map, there is a ton of parking in that area and plus it's on the weekend. The most of the buildings around around the civic center are closed, which means that there's even more spots open. So I don't think parking is going to be a big issue for us.
Thank you. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff about the events, but now I have a few questions more directed at you personally.
Sure. Okay.
So first, yeah, we're both California locals, but a lot of people will be visiting TouhouFest. Well, a lot of people will be visiting California while they visit TouhouFest. So, outside of just TouhouFest, do you have any recommendations of things to do around the state, and also, like, good things to eat here?
Ooh, so around so well one so let's back up for a second. So for food wise, I mean LA, I don't think there's So around the immediate area of Torrance, we've got like I think quite a few Japanese restaurants, Mexican restaurants and such. But if you're definitely more willing to drive to some other places, there's quite a few eateries around like in Old Town Torrance. I know downtown LA and Koreatown has like some of the best Korean and hamburger places. Yeah, so LA, we're definitely not short on variety of food. We're not short on that. And speaking of food, we also do have 2 food trucks as well. So we got food right, very close. That was a consideration. So, as to do stuff around LA, if people are, if people do have, are staying, I think some people are staying for like a few days. I will warn people ahead of time. LA is absolutely massive. So, and there's just so much to see and do. Like, let's see, within LA, you've got like, for example, the museums. You can spend like a day or two at the museums. You can obviously do like the so-called, the touristy things where you go to like, let's say the like the Hollywood Walk of Fame,
Yes.
like at the Griffith Observatory, which are pretty close by, and that is stuff to see. Then of course there's like the famous Santa Monica Pier, in Venice Beach, which I mean, hey, LA is known for the beaches, and the weather's generally speaking around this time pretty good. What I like to do is sometimes just to walk along the beach, so and then just taking the sights is quite nice. And just nice stroll on the beaches and such. What else is there? Geez. There's like, well, again, depending on how much time. So I know the Mario movie recently came out, and they just finished the. I believe they recently opened the Mario Land section in Universal Studios. So if they're into that stuff, we've got of course Disneyland, we've got Universal Studios, we've got Knott's Berry Farm, we've got Six Flags Magic Mountain. So you've got lots of stuff like that, and that's what else is there? That's just the theme parks. We got like 4 really massive theme parks, and don't forget, this is just within the LA metropolitan area. If you're talking about like expanding into like let's say California, I mean then you're talking about like let's say like even bigger stuff like some people I mean think that they like nature, so we've got like what 4 or 5 I think at least I want to say 7 national parks. Again, scenery is absolutely beautiful. So let's say well I want to change the scenery. I don't want to be around the urban environment all the time. Yeah, just say if you can take a drive out to like Death Valley, Yosemite, or national park. Very different. I've I've done this once or twice. Is just go drive along the Pacific Coast Highway going north. Absolutely beautiful drive. So there's just so much to see and do here, not just in LA, but just again, California. I mean, it's a huge state, so you can like I've lived here for all my life, and I still haven't seen everything. I lived in LA basically my whole life, and I still haven't seen everything. So,
Yeah, a lot for you to see and do when you come down to it.
mm-hmm,
Also, our weather's nice, so hope you look forward to that.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah, question I got from just when I was asking around for questions. So, what personally drew you to Touhou?
Ooh, good question. I think because it's been so long too. Like, if I'm remembering correctly, I gotta say it was the music. So, I used to play piano for like 20 years. Okay, and in college, I said, okay, I played a lot of classical songs and such. That's how I was trained. So to try and learn something different, I thought, well, why not play some video game songs, or why not play some anime songs? Okay, so I looked at some songs I wanted to try, and I remember browsing YouTube, and I see like these songs, but of course they were at the time, of course, no, they're in Japanese. So but I thought, okay, sure, what is it? And I click on it, and it sounded from the video game. It sounded really cool, and I believe it was. I want to say the first Touhou songs. I want to say it was either Love Colored, Master Spark, Night of Nights, or I forgot what was the other one, or UNO one. I think it was one of those. Yeah, three. So now, at the time, I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like it was from a video game. Just because like the certain like intonations, like the rhythm and stuff, right? So I know this will set up a lot of people, but no, I didn't ever make that mistake of thinking it was from an anime, because I heard the music. The music doesn't sound like it's from an anime, and when I did more research, I found out that, oh hey, the music is from a series called Touhou. Okay. Um, And let's just say that was a huge rabbit hole. I think every listener who hears this knows what I'm talking about when they say once you find that, it becomes a whole deep rabbit hole. Um, just finding out, oh, hey, they're, the original. So I didn't get into the games until I want to say 2011. So I knew about it till around say 2010 or 9, and then it's like, okay, you find out like hey, these games are like it's made by one person. There's it's like a bullet hell series. Okay, um, and okay, and the music is really really nice. And there's like, oh, there's all this artwork for all these characters that look very nice, very beautiful. And then you find out, oh, there's also all these doujin works, all these fan comics. And then this is what partially what gave me the idea to do a Touhou event here. Oh, by the way, did you know that there is a Touhou only event in Japan called Reitai Sai? It's like, what? And it's just you can see like it just goes deeper, deeper, and deeper. Oh my gosh! So, but what drew me to Touhou, right, was really the music at first, and as I get older and I started cosplaying, I started, going to conventions, I've met a huge amount of people. I've met a huge amount of friends. A lot of them I still hang out with and such through the community. Now, of course, after I graduated, I don't get a chance to see a lot of my old friends anymore. A lot of people, they moved on. They moved out. I didn't always keep in touch with them. So being able to see, and meet with people within the community is what kept me going. That's why, and I've been in it ever since. So.
Yeah, very big rabbit hole. It's nice to see that it stayed with you after all these years. I'm still a fairly new fan of 4 years, but yeah, I'm looking forward to see what the future brings. But kind of related to the fandom, actually. So yeah, you've been in it for a long time, and recently, Touhou's made a lot more mainstream appearances. Like, you had Scarlet Belize becoming a viral TikTok song, then you had Senior Palo making a Touhou 6 animation.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on people getting into Touhou from, like, these less niche things? And do you think the fan base is in a different place in comparison to, say, like, 5 years ago?
I mean, in all honesty, it's a little bit difficult to say because um, it's really, for me personally, it's really hard to get a grasp on like the Touhou community as a whole. Because you're asking again, that's a very big question, right? So I know that a lot of people, they're getting into Touhou like through various different avenues, and those avenues are very different than like how I got into it like 10 years ago, for example. Like 10 years ago, TikTok was not a thing, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have Twitter. I didn't have Instagram. So I wasn't exposed to it like that. Um, I forget if Steam was a thing back then. I forgot when it was like that. But, you know, I didn't have Steam until like around 2000, 2013 or 14. The Touhou games didn't get put on until like around, say, 2016 or 17, for example. So I want to say, if the question is the community in a different place than it was 5 years ago? I want to say the answer is yes. As to exactly what place the community is in, then the answer is I don't know.
Yeah, got it. Because, yeah, it comes down to Touhou being so big. It's been interesting to see how things evolve throughout all the years. That question was a viewer question, too. So I'd like to thank them. Yeah, that got me thinking a lot, also.
It is no, I
So,
mean, and to be fair, it is an interesting question, like how one gets into like a certain community. But it's like, so I mean, I think in years, in days gone by, like there would be fewer avenues where people can go in, can get into something, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so let's take a more broad, let's take a more like a more well-known series. Like, let's take like Star Wars or Star Trek, for example. So Star Wars and Star Trek, they have movies, and a TV series. So that's probably what exposes a ton of people to it. Now, of course, now they've got more series. They have like an animated series, live action series. There are, of course, books. There are comics. There's a bunch of other stuff as well. But most people are going to probably be exposed to it through the movies. So they're going through it, in one direction like that. So like occasionally I've seen people like, let's say, doing like the lightsaber choreography and such. But again, see, back then people get into it through the movies. Now, are they seeing it like, let's say, through like uh, the stuff through like, let's say, on YouTube and the internet, perhaps? So I'm just saying, like, you notice how like different communities like that, like, is a bit, how people, I should say, the entry point, I should say. Um, there were fewer entry points years and years ago, but now when people say, "How did you get into Touhou?" Well, there's so many more entry points, right? So, and people will go through like in so many different ways. Like, I actually don't mind mentioning this. So in Odyssey server, I actually did pose a question, in the Touhou channel there. Like, I asked them, hey, so did you guys find how did you guys get into Touhou? Did you guys get into Touhou first and then found Odyssey, or was it the other way around? Were you guys fans of Odyssey first, and then you find out, oh, hey, she does all these other songs, including Touhou. So did you go around through it that way? So you see what I mean? That there's so many different entry points.
Yeah. Yeah, very broad, very open.
Mm-hmm.
That is a nice way to think about it. From games to songs to animations, just so many different ways to get into Touhou. So, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Out of everything happening at TouhouFest, what are you personally the most excited for?
Oh, trying to trick me with that one.
You don't have to mention a guest. It can be something as general as like gathering all the people,
Yeah.
having all the merch in one place.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, well, definitely, like, so, again, as the head organizer, I do have to be neutral, so I can't be, overly biased towards, one person or one group group. But as I mentioned before, since I will be doing the opening ceremonies and such, and I will be emceeing part of that. So all those guests that I mentioned, right? All those guests, all those performers, they're going to be on the same stage. And not only that, they're going to be on the same stage. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few hundred people at the in the plaza for opening ceremonies just to be able to see them. So that's probably to me the biggest excitement is to see all that essentially in one location at that point. Which, if you think about it, is insane because see a lot of the guests, for example, they've never met in person. Like you meant like for no again I don't mind saying this. So for instance, so as you're probably aware, Wonderful, of course she does a lot of Touhou cosplays, and she does a lot of streaming. She streams a lot of games. And obviously, one of the things that a lot of people do is when you end the stream, you see on your friends list, who can I raid, right? And I remember, hey, she's rated Odyssey, for example, because they were streaming at the same time. Which, like, I was watching both of them. I can't watch them both at the same time. Why? Ugh. So, but, hey, Wonderful rated Odyssey, for example. But have those two physically met? Then the answer is no. At least not until that point. It's kind of cool for everyone to like meet in person. Let's see, for example, as you mentioned earlier, hey, okay, fun question then for you as well. And so you work, you're part of the Touhou game dev server, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people have you met, like with, like let's say your group or the team there prior to TouhouFest?
Oh, I've talked about this before, but I've worked with upwards of I think 50 people at this point. It's kind of insane. And of the people, there's going to be around I know of 12 coming to TouhouFest, and it's not just people from California. You have people coming from the East Coast. You have people coming from Texas. There's a lot of places a lot of my friends are coming from.
Mm-hmm. But the question is, have you met them in person prior?
Here's the funny thing. I met one of them in person this Saturday. Just coincidentally. That's it. Everyone else I'm meeting for the first time.
So, wouldn't you say that's also pretty exciting as well, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that to me is the most exciting thing, is just seeing so many people. Like, again, we could have met, before, prior to this, but, didn't always happen. So meeting you face to face to, attach a face to the name and the hashtag, that's pretty cool, right? So, meeting Gensokyo Radio. I've always heard their voices and such. I've never seen their faces at all. So, or maybe I did, but it was like how many years ago. So again, I think that's pretty exciting. So, yeah. So being able to see all that, all just kind of come together and such, and to me is, I think, the thing that I'm most excited for. So, and quick little side thing. So, I used to really like building puzzles. I used to play a lot of Lego. I like building stuff, right? So when you get like a puzzle or Lego set, it comes inside of the box. You have all these pieces, right? And you follow the instructions and you put it together slowly, piece by piece. And obviously, when you reach the end of the booklets, you've got you got your puzzle completed. You've got the finished product. You've got the finished Lego set or whatever. If you want to look at it that way, TouhouFest is kind of the same thing. As I said, we planned this for 2 years, and we're slowly putting the pieces together. And seeing it, from what the pieces were scattered about, and seeing it finally complete, you have to admit that is a very certain level of satisfaction and gratitude, right?
Yeah, I love it when a plan comes together.
Now you're quoting stuff as well. I love when a plan comes together.
I am quoting myself actually. I think I said this like way back on a Megafrog's podcast. Yeah, but like as my own thing, because you have TouhouFest, I had my thing of after I found success with Bad Apple, I had this plan of like, oh hey, if I can make a Touhou starter guide for people who watch that video DM to Touhou, those videos would probably do well too. And they did, and now my channel, yeah, my channel grew from having successful videos after Bad Apple. So yeah, I love it when like you're able to plan things out ahead of time and then yeah, they all come together. So in this case for you, it's TouhouFest.
Yeah.
So lastly, the question you've probably been waiting for all interview, why is Miko your favorite Touhou character?
So I've mentioned this a few times. So okay, because I wasn't sure like why Miko. So why is Miko my favorite character? So I gotta say so jeez. So way back when Game 13 came out, I want to say 2012 or 13. I want to say that. Um, like I really liked her theme, and her design was pretty cool. I think. Um, but I'll be honest, at the time I didn't know too much. I didn't look too much into her backstory. It's not yet. Come 2013, that I believe that's when Hopeless Masquerade came out. And as everyone is aware of, that is the game where Miko got the cape. And I thought to myself, wow, that looks so awesome and badass. And don't forget, I was still getting into Touhou cosplays at the time and wanted to do something, a little bit more challenging. And I figured, like, wow, I like to cosplay like the more lesser known characters. Like I didn't want to cosplay, like Rainbow or Marissa, at least, not off the bat, because I knew they're like super popular. Um, so I cosplayed Shikieki before I cosplayed Miko, just because Shikieki, I felt like I didn't see that many cosplays of her, so I thought, okay, her design was really cool. I liked her outfit. I thought, okay, sure, why not? And then I see Miko with that giant cape, and it's like, okay, that looks so cool. I want to cosplay her. And little do I know how much that thing would cost and how many parts. Because if you look at her outfit, there are so many parts. There's like the base outfit, there's like the belts, there's her props, her boots. Then you factor in like, okay, you've also got like the armbands, the cape, the wig, and the headphones. So yeah. So so it's partially her theme, partially of course her design, and why Miko. So when I did more research into her backstory, um into her character, and she has the famous rivalry, the Buddhism versus Taoism, her rivalry with Byakuran. I really liked it, and I feel as someone, I don't mind saying this, geez, as of this year, as of TouhouFest this year, I would have cosplayed Miko for 10 years. And as someone who I think knows her pretty well, um, I feel like in terms of personality, out of all the Touhou characters, she arguably comes the closest to my own personality, I think. Um, So I think that's probably why I've stuck with that for so long, and why she's been like, even with all the characters that came out, 14, 15, all the up to perhaps 19. There are some characters that have gone, within my top 5 and top 10, but so far no character has ever unseated Miko from my number as my number one Touhou at that point. Just because it's like, I really appreciate what the backstory, and like I said, everything really about the character herself, and that it's like, because, and let's be honest, I think for a lot of people, they love the designs and they love the themes of the character, and like certain characters appeal to because you have such a wide cast of characters, with very distinct personalities. I think every Touhou character, you know, kind of in a way speaks to someone within the community, right? I guess, does that make any sense? Like why a fan grows attached to a certain character. So, and I don't mind mentioning this too. So I know that not too long ago you had your video of the characters and their dream selves.
Yes, the dreams of Touhou characters.
So I gotta say, when you actually got to Miko's portion, oh, that hit me. That hit really close to home. Let's just say that hit really close to home.
Yeah, it's always interesting to observe, all the different characters. Like, I was talking with some people earlier, and we just came to the realization a lot of Sumi Reko fans just happen to be autistic, and that's really cool. There's a lot of different things about different Touhou characters that people can identify with.
Right, exactly. So, like, for example, you mentioned, in your video, like Nitori, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that like Nitori because she's such a, as you mentioned, because she's such a pure character, and because I would not be surprised that, hey, there are people who are like engineers who gravitate towards Nitori. It makes sense, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, yeah, to me, it's like, yeah, but going back, I just, I just found myself gravitating towards Miko. Maybe because, like you said, her personality seems, well, at least what I can imagine, is similar to my own. And again, you can take it however you want. So Miko's backstory is basically, Prince Shotoku, uh, taken with some liberties, right? So and your listener can have fun with this. So for those, I did my research into Prince Shotoku, and like how he tried to unify and stabilize Japan, right? So, and to some degree, I'm as the organizer for TouhouFest, that's kind of what I'm also doing, is I'm helping to kind of unify the Touhou community a little bit, right? To a degree. And if you look at the Discord, if you notice the color ranking scheme, right? How all the different groups, all the different things are colored. If you get the reference, those actually are the same. It's the same 12 level cap and rank system that Prince Shotoku implemented. So I just followed that exact same scenario. It's a little fun little joke, right? Why not? Like, I'm just gonna play into the character. Like, okay. So yeah, and so to me, it's just like so playing in so and the reason why I kind of both kind of joke and also kind of like, oh, this actually happened. It's like, I, with the way how her character is set up, it's like, and the fact that yes, in case people don't know, I will obviously be cosplaying Miko at the event. So the head organizer of the event is also cosplaying Miko. Doesn't that make perfect sense? Right?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of curious because I think earlier in this interview you mentioned the word administrator,
Yes.
and it's been almost like, I don't know, 2 hours at this point, but was that a setup just for this very moment?
I didn't. That wasn't intentional. But sure, let's. You want to go with it? That's fine. I mean, so yeah, as I said, like as the head organizer, the administrator of the event. Now that comes full circle, right? Yeah. So I literally pull. I mean, what is Quan? What is the title of her song? It's Shotoku Legend True Administrator. And now me, no, both her or me is running the event. Kind of comes full circle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I just say like it is like okay. I'll be honest. 10 years ago when I first started cosplaying the character, did I ever expect to be in the position that I'm in now? No. There is no way in hell I would have thought that. And yet here I am. And it's like it's in all honesty, it is a bit of a weird feeling. Simply because it's something that kind of in a sense just sort of happened. And I just said, you know what? I'm just gonna take it in stride and, see where it takes me. That's what I did. Bit of a convoluted, bit of like a little bit tangent, but like yeah, that's part of the reason for that. So a little bit because of what I'm actually doing, a little bit of the character itself, the theme, how she looks. There's a little bit combination of everything. So, but that's kind of my story for that. So, hope you found that interesting. I hope your viewers definitely found that interesting.
Yes, that is a very great answer. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and once again, it has almost been 2 hours at this point, so thank you for joining me across these various questions. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's definitely thank you again for doing this interview. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you.
Okay, so this will be all for this interview. Again, TouhouFest happens April 29th to April 30th in Torrance, California. So, yeah, I hope to see many of you there. Later.
Thank you so much. Later.